viewers. My name is Charisma Nyambalo from BCM. Welcome to the Eastern Cape Department of Education Broadcast Studio. Today's lesson is on the overview of economics paper 2. Now let us look at section B. We have already talked about what is in each question, but let us move straight away into a question. I just took it from June 2023, which is section B. Remember, the first part is only 4 marks. I chose question 4 because it allows me to look at both microeconomics and contemporary. 4.1. This is a part of, it's a section here of question 4. Now, name 2 groups of workers that benefit from minimum wages. Now, you need to look at what the requirements of the questions are. You are just naming. You are not writing a full sentence. You are just naming them that will benefit from a minimum wage. 4.1.2, it is saying why. So it should come out in your response that there is a reason. Why do international tourists prefer to visit South Africa as a tourist destination? What is there in South Africa which makes them want to visit South Africa? That is part of your answer. And these tourists are tourists from outside because these are international tourists. Now, there is a common response that is a little bit outdated, which we are no longer marking here. The one that talks about the political miracle of South Africa. It is said that it has been more than 20 years now. Tourists are now visiting for other reasons apart from that. So it's there in our start guides. Let's not use it because it's a little bit outdated. So take note of that. So try to attempt these questions and see and take note of the tips that I've given you. You are just giving us 2. If you give us more than 2 groups, we mark the first 2 only. We don't look for maybe you have put 5 there and we start looking for the correct ones that are there. We just mark the first 2. So those are the tips that I can give you here. And those are your responses. You can check what is here with what you have been doing. Now, let us look at the data response. I've got 4.2 here. Start the table below and answer the questions that follow. And let's look at the table that is here. It has got market A, it has got market B, there's quantity, there's price, there's total revenue, quantity, price, and total revenue. There are figures here. Just look at them. Now, going to our first question, 4.2.1, identify the market in which the demand curve shows a downward slope. What is it? Identifying. So you are picking from what is given. You are not picking from anywhere. You are identifying. And what are you identifying? The one market with a downward sloping demand curve. Now, we have to think now. When we are drawing a demand curve, we use the quantity and the price. So looking at the first one, the price is the same. The quantity differs, but the price is the same. Most likely, if we draw this demand curve, it's going to be a horizontal demand curve. But we are looking for a downward sloping without even trying to do the demand curve. You can see that the option that is left is what you are looking for. But anyway, let us just look at what is happening. As the price is, when the price is 12 Rand, we demand 0 units. And then when it is 10, we demand 1. When it is 8, we demand 2. So what is going on here? The demand curve is sloping downwards. So this is our correct answer. Now, a common mistake when it comes to a question like this one is whereby learners, instead of picking from what is given here, they start telling us the market on your right, the market on the left. There is no need for you to do that. Pick from what is given. This is market B. You identify the one with a downward sloping demand curve. 4.2.2, what is the nature of products sold in perfect markets? We know perfect markets, and because of the demand curve that is horizontal, this is our perfect market. But what is the nature of product? There is a caution here. They are not asking for examples. That is a common mistake. They are not asking for examples. You are not going to tell us about maize. You are not going to tell us about agricultural products. You are not going to tell us about mining products, gold. You are not going to tell us about tomatoes or maize or potatoes. We are looking for a nature of product for perfect markets. In other words, we want to know, is it homogeneous? Is it heterogeneous? That's what we are looking for. Is it unique? So what is the nature of product here? It should be homogeneous. So that is going to be your answer. So since you are revising, why not also try and check the nature of products for other market structures that you know, so that you can know, because sometimes it's not going to be the same. This is a question that was already written, which you are not going to write. Now, 4.2.3, always a question that ends with a 3 here. It has got to do with a description of a term. Now, what are we describing here? Briefly describe the term average revenue. Now, be careful. We are not going to give a definition. I talked about this one already in the first section. It is going to be a description, not a formula. We are not going to say total revenue divided by quantity. This is wrong. We want you to say this is the revenue that you get per unit sold. And why not look at other terms that are there, those key concepts that are to do with these revenues and costs, and know how to describe them. 4.2.4, why do individual firms find it easy to enter a perfect market? Again, in this one, we want reasons. A common mistake that is here is to repeat the question, whereby learners are going to say, there is easy entry and exit in perfect markets. That is very correct, but you are not answering the question. The question is asking, is demanding you to explain why it is easy to enter into perfect markets. What is it that makes it easy for individual sellers to join perfect markets? Maybe you talk about capital. There is no need for huge capital. There are no restrictions from the government and all those things. Now, let's move on to 4.25. You need to calculate. What are you calculating? You are calculating marginal revenue. Remember, we were saying that when you are doing these terms, also know the formulas. There's nothing wrong with knowing the formulas, only that they are not a description. They are a formula. So we need now to calculate marginal revenue. But you are not just calculating a marginal revenue that you feel like calculating. You are calculating a marginal revenue which is in market B. And we are not choosing your own. You are choosing the one in quantity 2. So we are here in quantity 2. Now, what is another instruction? We are looking at all calculations. You have to show them. Don't skip a calculation. Don't leave a calculation in your calculator. Because if you go home with it, we are not going to be able to mark it in your calculator. So you have to write it in your answer book. Now, with marginal revenue, we are now the formula here is your change in your total revenue divided by your change in your quantity. But which one are we looking at? We are looking at total revenue in quantity 2, and this is also the quantity that we are looking at. Now, how has the total revenue changed? It changed from 10 rand to 16 rands. So we're going to say 16 minus 10, which is your next step now. 16 minus 10. divided by the change in quantity, which is now your new quantity minus your old quantity. So your 2 minus 1. This is your new total revenue. This is your old total revenue, which you indicated on the total revenue. Now, the next step, can you please say 16 minus 10? You get what? 6. And you write the 6. And then you say divided by this 2 minus 1. What is the answer? Divided by 1. And then you give the final answer, which is 6. All those steps, including the formula, are going to get ticks up until you get to the final answer. Please don't leave anything here. Now, another one, data response, can be an extract. Please read it for understanding. Also check where it is coming from. Check this heading, tourism activities in South Africa. Let me read it. Tourist arrivals in South Africa averaged 542,648 from 1979 until 2022. It reached a high of 1,598,893 in January 2018 and a record low of 29,341 in April 2022. South Africa offers both domestic and international tourists a wide range of options, such as beautiful landscapes, game reserves, diverse culture, and highly regarded wines. Now, read the questions now. After reading the questions, come back again and read the extract. It helps a lot. Read the questions, go back. You're now reading for understanding. You are now reading so that you can be guided on what to answer here. Now, the first one, again it goes, identify. What are we identifying? An example of what? Of ecotourism. From where? From the above extract. Now, you can see that we have got so many examples that have been given. Again, the most problem is to rewrite this whole sentence. We are not rewriting the sentence. We are looking for answers from this sentence. And some of the answers here are wrong. So if you rewrite the whole sentence, you haven't identified, we are not too sure if you know the correct one. So go for the ones that are relating to ecotourism, which could be your beautiful natural landscapes. And we only need one because the answer is only 1 mark. There could be another one, but we need one answer. In this case, also game reserves, they form part of ecotourism. But why not go for the one that you are 100% sure, the beautiful natural landscape? You never go wrong with that one. Can you please choose the one that is very easy and that you can relate to? 432, give one. That is why there is 1 mark here. Reason for a decline in tourism in April 2020. In this case, you should just know that anything that relates to the time period of 2020, 2021, that is when we had the COVID-19. It made some decline in a lot of activities. It can be a graph, and then all of a sudden there is a decline. Just know that in those years, there was what problem was there. You should be able to know about it. That is the COVID-19. And then we are now back again. Briefly describe leisure tourism. I touched on this one. Your answer should not have leisure. These tourists, when you say tourists who are traveling for leisure, what is leisure? These are tourists who are traveling for relaxation, visiting friends and relatives or sports activities. Those are your leisure tourists. And at this point in time, look at other types of tourism that you have. And why are indigenous knowledge systems important for tourists? A problem here is not to explain the why part of the question. Rather, most learners They have learned the indigenous knowledge systems. They know the definition. Now, how do they answer? They define indigenous knowledge system, but you are not answering the question. The question is saying, why is it important for tourists, these people who are touring? Why is it important for them? So use that definition that you have for indigenous knowledge systems, but twist that information to answer your question. These, you know that there is some, they've got a culture that is unique, the music that is unique, their way of living is not the same with these tourists. So that is your definition for indigenous knowledge systems, but you are not defining it. You are using that information. When tourists visit, they are looking for authenticity. They are looking for genuine culture and how people live and work. Those are things that are there in your definition. They want to see these things by visiting the different cultures that are offered. That is why it is important to tourists. Now, 435. How does tourism solve the problem of unemployment? Again, we want the how part of it. How are you doing it? How is this tourism going to solve the problem of unemployment? So there is one thing here, there is tourism. There is one thing here, there is unemployment. Now, how does this tourism solve unemployment? What is there, which is there in tourism, which can help us to solve unemployment? Tourism, it employs different skills. Tourism, there is entrepreneurship. In tourism, we also have got, it is labor intensive. Use that. Construct full sentences from those phrases and check how can they solve the problem of unemployment. Check your responses and see. Now, this is 4.4. With the aid of a correctly labeled graph, explain maximum prices as a consequence of market failure. The question is already saying with the aid of a graph. So we draw the graph, and it is also giving us an instruction. We don't have a choice. We have to label that graph. And then we have got to explain. What are we explaining? Maximum prices as a consequence of market failure. Now, what is the first thing to do? We are going to draw our axis, and that is the original point, that is the quantity, and this is the price. You should be careful, because if it is saying here minimum wage, you are not going to say price there. You are going to say wage rate. But this one is saying maximum what? Price. We draw the demand curve, we label it, we draw the supply curve, we also label it. We come to the equilibrium. There are different ways of labeling the equilibrium, but personally, I prefer to label it what? E. But you can see any other letter on the equilibrium is still fine. Then we are now labeling. Remember, when we were putting quantity and price, we were labeling the axis, the vertical and horizontal axis. But this time, we are now labeling on the axis. That is our quantity, and that is going to be our price. We are now labeling on the axis. Now, the next thing now, we need to show the maximum what? Price. Always the maximum price is set by the government below the equilibrium. And we also label it P1. Now, what is going to happen? Whenever you are drawing those graphs that are to do with market failure, there are a few things that you need to know. You need to draw the graph, make sure that all the curves are labeled, and you have identified there is that confusion because it's saying maximum. The temptation is to draw it above. No, it is below the equilibrium. That is the maximum price. Now, you now need telling us that DD is the demand curve, SS is the supply curve, E is the equilibrium will not give you marks. We want to show, to explain more on that using those those curves. But anyway, the first thing now, you are now explaining. You can define your maximum prices. Then your fifth point, you define your maximum price. And then you can now talk about why does the government give maximum prices? Why does it give them? Maybe to make the goods more affordable. Because if you look at this P1 is more affordable than the original price. Now, the next thing that you look at is the effect. What is the effect? What is going to happen when it is imposed? Now, you are going to tell us when the maximum price was implemented by the government below the equilibrium point as P1, what happened? You use what is in the graph. That is what we mean by the aid. What is going to happen? The suppliers are going to supply less. They are going to supply Q1. And the consumers are going to demand more. Why? Because the goods are now affordable. Remember the law of demand. When the prices are low, we demand more. But for the suppliers, because they want to make a profit, they supply less because of that fall in price. Now, what is the consequence here? What is going to be the effect? There is going to be a shortage. Please label the shortage and indicate the shortage and write shortage there. That is what we mean. So you are going to write that there is going to be a shortage of Q2 minus Q1 because of the implementation of the maximum price. Try to use the information that is there in the graph. And what other things might happen? We are going to have illegal markets, which are known as black markets, where goods are sold illegally but at a higher price. So try to make sure that you know your graphs, you know the effect, you know how to use with the graph. Another point of to look at is to try and explain without a graph. In this case, you are not looking, there is no graph. So don't refer to Q or D or to whatever. You are just explaining what you know about maximum prices. So that is one way. Please check what is here and try to see how marks are allocated. There is 1 mark for the labeling of the axis and labeling on the axis, which is this. This is your labeling on the axis. This is labeling of the axis. And then drawing the correct curves is 1 mark. So drawing the demand curve and drawing the supply curve, there is the 1 mark for that. And the indication of the maximum price, this line P1, which is 15, and by writing the maximum price, there is the tick. So that is how the marks are allocated, and you have got a maximum of 4 marks. From the explanation, you are going to get another 4 marks. So please don't just leave the graph, also do some explanation. At this point in time, please also allow me to highlight to you some changes that have been indicated since June of this year, when there are some changes on how to label graphs. If you are asked to draw the graphs, especially for monopoly, or it can be the short-run equilibrium positions for perfect markets, when you are labeling the axis, quantity is still fine. You label it like that. But on this side, where you label your price, your revenue, and your cost, in some cases, this graph did not require any cost. That is why there is no cost. But where there is a cost that is required, please don't use the slash. We used to use a slash. We are now using a comma. Because once you put a slash, you are saying the price, the revenue, and the cost, those variables are the same. But we know that they are not the same. So it's a correction for us. The most correct way of doing it is to put a comma. That's what you are measuring, but it's not the same. So please take care of that. That is very important. And if you are drawing the graphs for monopoly, for example, this one is for monopoly, what are you going to do? The first point here is the same. And the average revenue is the one which is the same as the demand curve. Perfect, you draw it. And the next thing is your marginal revenue, which is lying below the average revenue. Now, we know that it's like that because for a monopolist to sell one extra unit, they have got to reduce the price. But when you are drawing it, make sure that from the original point to the average revenue, the distance between should be equidistant. It should be the same. It should be too small on one side. It should be almost halfway. And also, one thing that is now very important is not to put this original point on the vertical axis. Let me repeat again. The original point is no longer on the vertical point, on the vertical axis. Rather, it's now starting at quantity 1 because there is nothing that is produced at 0. So it should start at that quantity 1. Please take care of these notices that are coming from marking. Now, I'll leave you with a higher order question. How can the South African Reserve Bank use the monetary policy to combat inflation? The question, the action verb there is how. And you need to show how by explaining, not leaving a point whereby we are going to say, and then what? So what? And we are talking about the monetary authority, which is the sub, and how do they use the monetary policy to combat? To combat is to curb, to reduce the inflation. So what are we going to look at? We are going to look at the tools of the monetary policy, your interest rates, your cash reserve requirements, open market transactions, your moral suasion. Those are the ones, but listing them will not give you the 8 marks. You need to explain those points. They should be fully explained. And in this case, you are not explaining anything that is not to do with reducing inflation. You are not going to tell us that when there is when there is no inflation, this is what you do or whatever. You are already, they have picked a side. The side is saying that there is inflation. Now, how do we reduce that inflation? So then you discuss what you do to your interest rates, the repo rate. Maybe the monetary authority is going to increase the repo rate, making it expensive to borrow, thereby discouraging borrowing because the prime lending rate is also going to increase. All those things that are there, as long as they are the tools of the monetary policy. You can check out what is here. So we're talking about the repo rate, maybe discouraging consumer spending, the directly reducing the amount of money by selling open market, selling government securities on the open market, the cash reserve requirements, they can be increased so as to reduce the amount of money that is in circulation. There are a lot of things that you can that can be looked at here. Now, let's go to section C, the favorite part. Whenever you're opening that question paper, you start from the back because you want to know if there is an essay that you practiced. We have got question 5, which is your macroeconomics, question 6, which is your contemporary, and that section is going to give you 40 marks. And I have listed here the essays under each subheading that are there. Your perfect markets, one essay, imperfect markets, they are there. Some essays that are there that I have also listed here. Market failure, discuss in detail the following factors that lead to misallocation of resources. If you check, there are subheadings that are there. Then discuss in detail state intervention as consequence of market failure. Sometimes here you are not given the factors, but rather you are supposed to come up with the factors. Then it will be saying discuss in detail factors that lead to misallocation of resources. So those are some of the things, essays that are there that you can also look at. Comparing and contrasting, when you are comparing market structures, make sure that They can be perfect and imperfect. They can be imperfect and imperfect. Do those comparisons, look at the subheadings, and check if you are comfortable with these essays on microeconomics. And also on contemporary, there is 2 on inflation, 2 on tourism, 2 on environmental sustainability. What I like about them, 1 introduction here, you define inflation. And on tourism, 1 introduction, you define tourism. Environmental sustainability, 1 introduction, you define environmental sustainability. Now, if you are checking this one, we discussed it in the previous presentation, that be careful. Which essay are you writing? Make sure that you are picking the correct essay that you are writing. Then, on that essay, I have decided to come up with the structure of the essay, which is always given before you are given question 5 and question 6. Now, please read. Remind yourself of what is supposed to be written under each section. Our essay has got 4 sections. The first one is the introduction, then the main part, which is made up of the body, and the additional part. Then we have got the conclusion. Even when your marks are being awarded, you are given 2 here, you are given your maximum of 26 or whatever you have scored. You are also given what you have scored here, if it's 10 or whatever you have scored, and also here on your to make a total of 40. Now, in the introduction, this is a lower order response. You are going to define. What are you defining? Is it inflation? What are you defining? Is it market failure? Define it. Now, anything that is there, if it is a market, you can define a market structure, you can define a market, or you can define that market structure that you are talking about. So that can be a good starting point. But these are the don'ts. Do not include any part of the question in the introduction. There's no need to rephrase the question in the introduction. Again, do not, these are the don'ts, do not repeat part of the introduction in the body. So when we're marking the body and there's something that was here in the introduction, here in the body, we're going to refer to it as repetition and we don't mark it. So please reserve it for the body and not put it in the introduction. And this is one that is interesting. Avoid mentioning in the introduction what you are going to discuss in the body. Maybe you start saying, I am going to write an essay on measures to combat inflation. I am going to write about monetary measures, fiscal measures, and I'm going to also include other measures, which are this and that. That is not an introduction. A good starting point is to define a term that is there in the question. In the main body, your main body is going to, in some cases, your essay might be having the 8 subheadings. You are given a maximum of 8 ticks or 8 marks for your subheadings. If they are not, you don't get the 8 marks for the subheadings, you are going to get the other ticks from the examples that you are going to put in the body. But you are going to get a maximum of 8. Now, on the body, those 8 marks form part of the 26 marks. I just want to show you how easy it is to get these 26 marks. So already, if you say 26 marks minus these 8, you are now left with how much? You are now left with 18 marks. How can you get those 18 marks? You can get those 18 marks by putting a sentence, 1 or 2, under each subheading. So these subheadings, write 2 sentences under each. But be careful. If the subheadings are not 8, make sure that maybe they are only 5. Make sure that you add some more under each subheadings. But basically, we are looking at 9 points that are well explained. Not phrases, but well explained points in those subheadings. So if maybe the essay, let me choose an example of an essay that is very long. That can be maybe the consequences of market failures. It's a very long essay. So even if you reproduce that essay, you are only going to get a maximum of 26 marks. So be careful. You might take 1 hour trying to write all the points. And if you count, maybe you're getting even more than 100 ticks. We are only going to say maximum 26 and draw a line and not even read it because you have reached the maximum. Here it's saying your maximum is 26. So try to be careful. You might spend a lot of time reproducing an essay. Yes, you have done a good job, but you are not going to have more marks awarded to you. The person who wrote these points that are needed is going to still get 26. And yourself who had reproduced the essay, you also still going to get the 26. But I'm not saying don't study full essays. You don't know which one is going to come, but please read. And when you are writing, make sure that you are writing full sentences to get those 2 ticks. The additional part, please, the additional part is nothing to be afraid of. Please try to practice a lot of 0.5 questions. Your 225, your 2.5, 3.5, your 4.5 is the same way of writing. And some of the action verbs that I might want to look at is maybe to discuss, critically discuss, evaluate, suggest, compare, deduce. When they say evaluate, make sure that you look at the positives and the negatives, because to evaluate, you are not only looking at one side. And if you choose to say these are the positives, please make sure that you write the positives, or these are the successes. Please make sure that you are writing successes, because if you write the negative there, it's not going to be marked. So you can actually choose to just write your evaluation without maybe committing yourself too much by writing a success or unsuccessful. Just write evaluate. And if you just list, which means you are just writing things that are not well explained, you are only going to get a maximum of 2 marks. And that listing is not just writing anything. Maybe you have listed points that are relevant, but which are not explained. That's when you are given the mere listing. It's not like just writing something. So be careful. The additional part, please, is nothing to be afraid of, especially when it is maybe a certain concept that is you have been given, and then they are saying, how does it affect the economy? That is the easiest additional part. Whenever it's a concept that is affecting the economy, it means that you are going to look at the participants in the economy. Who are these participants? The households, which means yourself, starting with yourself. How are you affected by that concept? Or maybe let's say it's inflation. How does it affect the economy? How are you affected yourself? And then maybe the government. How is it affected? Is it going to get the same tax revenue? Is it going to provide enough public services? And things like when you are talking about e-businesses, how are the businesses going to be affected? Are their profits going to be affected? What are the effects? Try to think, what is going to happen? Is it about households? Is it going to result in inflation, high prices? What is going to happen? Are people going to lose jobs? Are people going to get more jobs? We try to think, what is going to happen? So other things that to look at, is it economic growth? Is economic growth going to be affected? Are we going to have problems of balance of payments? What is going to happen? Look at those things. Are we going to be able to export more? Are we going to have any other challenges? That is a very easy additional part. Please write it. Make sure that they are well explained. Don't limit yourself. Write everything that you know, because you never know. Some of the points might be hooked because you did not explain them properly. The last section on the essay is your conclusion. The conclusion sometimes is missing, or the conclusion is just a statement. Please, a conclusion is a higher order response. What can you do? You can give a summary of what you have discussed, but without repeating. There's a danger there. You can give your own opinion. Don't just say inflation is a problem in the economy. And then what? Can you please give us some solutions? That's what we are looking for. And then you can give additional support information to strengthen your discussion. That is another way. Or you can come up with a contradictory viewpoint. Maybe these are measures to combat inflation, but you think maybe there is something that is more important that you can offer us. So remember, in your conclusion, you can conclude on the main body. You can also conclude on your additional part. So you can conclude on any one of them. So please end at a high note for you to get the marks for additional, for the conclusion. Some exam tips for you. Manage your time wisely. Like I said, you cannot reproduce an essay and then section B with an 80 marks, you then give it less time. Choose your questions wisely in section B and C. So you know both essays in section C. You know this essay, you know that essay, you know question 5, you know question C. The next thing, look at the additional part. Which additional part are you comfortable with? Is it the additional part of question 6? Is it the additional part of question 5? Or where can you write more points? Then that is the one you should choose, not just to choose randomly. In section B, where you are supposed to choose 2 out of the 4 questions given, choose from bottom up. What is your 2.5? What is your 3.5? What is your 4.5? Can you write all of them? What is your 2.4, 3.4, and then 4.4? Which question? Because those are the bigger questions. And the 0.5s are the most difficult ones for you. So which one can you answer? And then the one that you think you are going to get more marks, please choose those ones. So choose before you start writing. Don't choose top to bottom. Because maybe mention any 2, state any 2 is easy for you. But coming to the 2.4 and 2.5, you are blank. And then that is when you leave the question in the middle and you forget to scratch it out. And you go to question 3 and question 4. Now time is up. You haven't scratched out question 2. Come marking. We mark question 2 and question 3 and leave out the question 4 that you knew. So please choose wisely, scratch out when you don't know the question. And then pay attention to the demands of the question. What are the action verbs, the command verbs, the marks that are required? If it is 4 marks, we need 2 well explained. That's why they say 2 times 2. If it is 8 marks, are there 2 concepts that you are describing? So if there are 2 concepts, it means that you need to explain the first concept and give it 2 well explained. And then the other one, you also give it 2 well explained. If you explain one and you give it all the 4 points, we only mark up to a maximum of 4. And then you lose the other marks from the other concept. This is normally very important with your 2.4. And if the question is saying evaluate positives and negatives, compare. You compare the same things. Maybe you're comparing market entry in perfect markets and in oligopoly. You don't have to mix it up with something else. It can be an essay. So those subheadings, market entry, nature of product, you have to have them. And you compare the same things at the same time, not talking about market entry on one side, and then on the other side, you are talking about the nature of product. It's not, you compare the same things at the same time. Now, start with the section you are most comfortable with. I know you like the essay. Once you see that there's an essay that you like, and please remember to number it. Question 5, question 6 is the essay I was doing. Before I can forget, I want to write it. Start with that essay. There's nothing wrong. Only that you have to write it. And when you are finished with the essay, even if you only wrote 2 sentences in that page, leave it out. Go to the next session. Don't start the next session just before it. In the instructions, it's there. You are not supposed to write the same question, 2 questions in the same page. You go to a fresh page. You are given a booklet in the final exam. So in that booklet, I've never seen a learner that finishes that booklet. So leave out, go to a fresh page. Is it section B that you are going to? Write section B. You write your question 2, or your question 3, or your question 4. Now, if you end somewhere, leave it. Go to a fresh page, a new page, a fresh page, a new page. You start the next question, and you do the same in other question. Don't mix the questions. Then, leave out time at the end to check if what you wrote is what you wanted. Maybe you left out not, and that not is changing the whole meaning of what you wanted to write. So please check what you have written and check if you have written, and also check the numbering. Is there a question that you omitted by mistake? Is there anywhere where you might want to add something? Remember the advantage of leaving 2 to 3 lines. Check everything. It is very important. We have seen it even in marking, that there are a lot of things that shows that someone just said full stop and stop writing, and there was no checking. Maybe there's a question that you wanted to go to, maybe your section A, where you were not too sure, where you wanted to fill in an answer. This is the time to go to it. Now, I'll end with these words from Arthur Ashe. Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. Where are you right now? It's easy to feel overwhelmed, to think, at this moment, I don't think I know anything. Or this paper too. You know something. There is something that is there that you know. Use what you have. You have got notes, you have got classworks, you have got tests that you have been given. Use what you have. And most importantly, do what you can. There's something that you can. So please, let us do that. And we have come to the end of our lesson. You can leave your questions on the comments, and do not forget to leave the name of your school so we can give shout outs. Please share, recommend, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching, and see you in our next lesson. Thank you.